My uncle has quite an interesting history in bodybuilding. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure he was the youngest Mr. Manitoba ever at 19 or 20 years old.
Contestant number 12, Krishna Makasing. I want to have for all these contestants, great job, a lot of work here.
He had a reputation for working very hard, as far as I understand.
My observation is I noticed he was in very good shape and he was good at things that he put his mind to.
In second place, number 30, Krishna Makasing.
My name is Krishna Makasing. I have an illness called schizophrenia, but I don't like to use that to define me. I view myself as a bodybuilder, a track and field athlete when I was younger, someone who thinks far ahead. But I would like to make people aware of how it is to have this illness if you're high functioning, how it can be for a person when they're learning about this illness, when they're starting to experience it, and what it's like to cope with it very well. And I would like people to know too that it's not always possible for a person who has this illness to perhaps way it's perceived as well as I'm doing.
Early 2017, I started going to Good Life. Anxiety was so bad, I didn't want to deal with anyone, didn't want to touch them. If anyone came near me, I didn't want to deal with them. I knew nothing about the gym. When I looked at bodybuilding, I was like, strange, you know? But all I cared about was just getting fit.
Good job, Paul.
The first time I heard schizophrenia, I was probably about 2 or 3. I just had a negative association with it because of somebody in my life who had it.
As I got a little bit older, I kept hearing family members talking about some sort of mental illness that I didn't fully comprehend.
When I first heard he got diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was about 11 or 12, I didn't know anything about it.
I felt very different. I didn't feel like myself. I was very frightened. It's like an intense fear going through your body, like you just almost got hit by a car. Except that didn't shut off. For many, many months, I was frightened to go to the door. I was frightened to talk to people. For some reason, I was very, very like in this intense fear. So my brain was, like in my mind, I'm trying to make sense of like, why are you so scared all the time? Like, what's going on? And then that turned into also anxiety. So I'd still try and force myself to go out at times. And there were really weird hallucination that I didn't actually acknowledge as a hallucination. It was so natural that I didn't catch it. So I'd be talking to my friends, and every now and again, one friend would be going like this and be like, "Hey Chris, how you doing? And you know, it's nice to see you." And I'd be like, "Well, okay, why is he doing that? Maybe his eye hurts or something." And then the odd time they'd be going like this. That was the other hallucination. And this would kind of repeat on different people until one time I thought like, why are they doing this? So I asked one friend, I'm like, you know, like, what are you guys like trying to tell me? You keep doing this and this. And then I saw the shock on my friend's face, like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And I realized all that fear, the anxiety, and now these hallucinations. I was able to identify that. A lot of times that's very difficult for someone who has schizophrenia.
When we got married, we were at first okay. It was okay, it was like a steady. The first few years, I wasn't giving him the support I should have. In hindsight, I realized that. Not long after we were married, I did not deal with it well. I like being married, I love being married, don't get me wrong. There was a part of me that felt with him being basically zombie zone with the medication, it was bringing me down in a sense that I didn't feel like we would have a life. I did not cope well with it at first. I thought I could. I couldn't. I think that had I been more open about it, had I had someone like tell me, hey, by the way, yeah, you can hang out with your friends, but you have a husband at home. I was up during the day and he would be sleeping because of the medication, so he would be up all night. So there was only like a small window, and I didn't take advantage of that. I left it, and it really, really hurt our marriage and really, really hurt him. You have to work out a schedule once or twice a month, not every weekend or every other day or something, and make date nights. Is there something we can do together? Can we play a game together? Can we watch a movie together? Just find something that you can do, even if your schedule is only overlapping where both of you are awake for 2 hours, 3 hours. Him sleeping a lot. It basically was a tranquilizer. So tranquilizers will knock him out. We got a different medication. It was a complete change. So it does take time to find the medication. It's a matter of talking with the doctors. That's another thing, is making sure you're talking with the doctors, because the doctors are also trying to figure it out for you, because there's no one size fits all for medications. Just make sure that the person still is in there. I didn't nurture it and the medication didn't help, but once that all changed, that person came back. They're not lost. I thought I was doing okay. I thought we were doing well. Kind of saw sometimes, but buried my head because I didn't know how to come back from it properly. I didn't know the conversation I should have had or the questions I should have had. And it's taken me a while. Sometimes I still do that. I still can be a detriment, but I am trying to be better about that, because you don't ever want to be like, I failed at this. I realized that he had a lot more energy and a lot more determination than I did, and I had to keep up with that. And that was a huge change for me, because I wasn't used to someone who also tried to push me and has pushed me. I have seen this person become way more, I'm gonna keep using these words, focused and determined. He's still got that 120% drive. The bodybuilding, it's his mental awareness of others, wanting to take that drive that he used when he first changed medications and took that 155 person. He took that person and is now at a spot where they have coalesced together and have come cohesive, and he's using that drive and what he wants to do to help people together. So the schizophrenia, it's not the forefront for me, because now I see a person who is just, they want to do good for others who have this illness, because he's done a lot of things that many people wouldn't think that someone who has schizophrenia could do. It's a huge change, and it's day by day. There's days where we get at each other. There are a lot more days where we get along, we're doing things great, we can laugh with one another. I feel the dark days are really behind us, from him being really sick with the medication taking on to now. It's a much more balanced life that we have.
In grade 9, there was 6 of us scouted from Canada to be in the US and train for a couple months. And I went home to tell my dad, and I was kind of proud, 6 people in all of Canada, that's quite a special thing. So my thing was like triple jump, long jump, and 100 meters, the relay 4x100. So I went to ask my dad, and of course he said no. And he didn't give a reason why. So I lived in the north end, a ways away from Kildonan Place Mall. So I would take 2 buses there after my day at school and come home. My dad was a fairly strict guy, so I think he didn't want me to work so much, because he thought maybe it would affect my wanting to go to school. So what happened was he started asking for rent, and I'm 15, so of course, it was just so he could like kind of push them around a little bit. And I'm one of those people, I'll take bullying for a while. But if you bully me to a point where, because I've put in a lot of my own things, like I'm gonna stand up for it, right? So probably wasn't the greatest move, but I ended up saying to him, I think 80% of my check, if I'm taking 2 buses to go to work, that's quite a bit, right? So he basically put the thing out there, like, if you don't like it, you can go. In fact, you should just go. He said, you shouldn't even live here. So I did. I just grabbed my stuff and left. I stayed at my brother's for a week or maybe a month. I was working, I dropped out of school, which caused some problems with, I guess a lot of people didn't kind of know what happened in the religion we were in. So kind of made them a little bit upset, but I don't think they understood what was happening in our family. What happened was I ended up rooming with someone. They had schizophrenia. And this is where I started to realize that people can have these health problems. So the roommate I had was he was such a nice person, but he wasn't well. So every day he'd come home and we had to share a room, right? Because it wasn't really rich. It was in the downtown area on Wolseley. Wolseley and Maryland is pretty much where I lived there. And I was very ill prepared, and I'm not going to school, and now I'm going to work every day. I wasn't making a hell of a lot of money. So it was quite something to learn how to budget money, make my own food, buy my groceries. And half the time I would either have to make a choice of eating food or taking a bus to work. I wouldn't always be able to do both. And I didn't have proper winter clothes, so a lot of times it was pretty cold. One person was very nice and gave me a pair of gloves, but most people didn't even ask, how you're doing or do you need any help? That kind of thing I noticed was very prevalent in the way I was treated. I would wear earmuffs and they would snap in half. Like you put an earmuff on, that part would break sometimes on the way home because it was so cold. So then I would have to walk like, like this with the gloves. So that's quite a distance from downtown to Kildonan Place. So I'd have to walk that a lot and not eat every day. So it wasn't that enjoyable. So I realized, okay, life isn't very easy. And the guy I was rooming with was very unwell. So a lot of nights I didn't get a good sleep, but, and I don't blame the fellow. I think too, a lot of bad things that happened to him. So he would come home from work, he would shovel snow and things like that. And, with his schizophrenia, he would think the bus driver wanted to kill him. And I have to talk him through this at night, and I'm 15. So it was kind of like unnerving to think that somebody really, and he really did believe it. He was a little delusional, but he had this paranoia in him that somebody was trying to hurt him. It was one of those things where I learned how to be really compassionate and not angry, I realized too, I was very lucky at that point to be able to rationalize things. At about 16 or 17, some family members, and I don't want to mention what happened exactly because these people have to live a life and it's been many years ago. Two family members, I think one intentionally, took me out and I was underage. We went to a social that was out of town. And anyhow, he brought some friends with him that were a little bit rowdy, and we went to someone's house after, for whatever reason, started attacking me, and the one fellow almost killed me. When I got dropped off home, I got raped by one of the person's wives, then thrown out of my religion because they were all in this religion and they all kind of had the story that it was my fault. So it was one of those things, now I don't have a family to talk to because in our religion, if you do something wrong and you don't repent, what happens is your family will not talk to you because now you're not repentant and you've turned your back on God according to them. So in my mind, we were taught this thing where if you don't turn to God, you're going to die. So I actually thought I was going to die for years after until I realized a little bit more about life, right? So I was kind of depressed. And I didn't really have much contact with family. And I'm a young person who's just been raped and beaten. So there was a lot of problems that I was going through at that point. And I wasn't in school. Who could you talk to at that point, right? Because you can't talk to your friends about something like that, right? I didn't really have a whole lot to begin with because I was working. I was younger than everyone in the work that I was at. So there isn't anyone who's really like that age that works full-time. Most people are in school. So I didn't really have anyone to talk to. I just kind of managed it through exercise and self-improvement. And I made a lot of mistakes. I kind of got into some people who were, very kind to me. And they gave me an opportunity. I got involved in that. And I did very well. But when I started to realize that It's not who I am. I'm a good person. I kind of left that. I met this guy named Henry. He goes by Hendrix. First of all, this guy had an incredible physique. It's one of those things when you're into working out and you see someone like at that level, you're like, wow, I didn't know Winnipeg had that. And so this guy was like, kind of took me under his wing. If it wasn't for him, I would not have known I was that good at stuff or had any kind of potential. I just kind of went and did stuff and was a very determined person, but I wasn't aware that that was even a talent. I think he kind of realized I had a raw deal. He didn't know a lot about my life, I don't think. So he took me to the gym and, worked out with me a bit and introduced me to like cool people. So I met like the who's who of kind of like the bodybuilding community, really. And I don't have experience of working out with bodybuilders or any bodybuilding community. Those communities don't really start for kids at that time period. This is back in the late 90s. The way things are now aren't the way they were back then, okay? So you didn't have people my age hanging out with the guys who were winning Mr. Manitoba and all this stuff. Took me to these people that really were inspiring and that were goal getters. So he would take me to the gym. He bought my gym memberships. He helped me learn how to diet. So all I could afford was tuna, broccoli, and rice. He took me to my first show. I had never seen a bodybuilding show live. And then this music starts playing that like Flex Wheeler poses to. I'm like, what's this music? And then Flex Wheeler comes out and it's like, and he's in shape. And I was actually so starstruck, I couldn't even say hi. But actually just seeing him on stage and then some of the amateur guys, I realized that I can maybe do this thing. So that kind of inspired me to actually do it, to do the bodybuilding. So my first show was at 19. I went into the juniors. Now, the junior class I happened to go into was so ridiculously stacked. It was probably one of the best classes you could ever have as a junior. So that was my first taste of bodybuilding, and I went up there like a show off and did the robot. The crowd loved it, I'll tell you right now. Most of the time when you have a 19-year-old bodybuilder, they don't know anything about posing, especially back then. Now they're a lot better because they actually practice. But it's usually just kind of comical when we go up there when we're young. It was for me, really. The next year I got to 159, and it was the qualifier. So I had to qualify now for the men's division. I weighed 159, so I was the second heaviest in my class. I ended up taking second place there out of all the men at 20. Because I didn't win the qualifier, and I'm a super competitive person, I decided to put things into overdrive. So I started developing and learning all these different workouts that were just like ridiculously high reps, so I'd be so ripped, there should be no question. So there was this guy, Brian Dueck, who would do 30 reps on his hack squat per set. So I started upping it to 50. When I would do leg extensions, I would do 90 reps a set. So I just went crazy with, it was lighter weight. So when I would do the hack squat, for example, it was just one plate aside, like so a 45 and a 45 on a hack squat. And when I would do leg extensions, it would be 90 pounds on it, but it was very light 90 pounds. The whole idea was to just do so much hard work, so much cardio, that there's no one who's working harder than me. It's not possible. Not possible for someone to eat better and work harder. And my work paid off. So when I went into the provincials, there was this guy named Brad Campbell, really competitive. He was about 37, I think. He did well a lot. In fact, a couple of years later, he won the overall. So he was a very good bodybuilder. It was an honor to really be on stage with a person of that quality. So I ended up winning, and Brad got second, which, I mean, it was such a relief. And I went home to visit. So I hadn't been home in a long, long time, okay? So it was kind of nervous for me. And when I went home, my mom was downstairs. My dad was, I said hi to him or whatever. It was kind of normal. He was very nice. The man cared. He wanted me to be really intelligent the way he wanted me to be. He thought he could force it out of a person. And I think I still have that kind of intelligence, just in a different way that he wanted. So I just want people to realize this. He didn't mean well. He just didn't have, he's not from our country, and he wasn't treated very well. So anyhow, I come back home and I hear this scream. And right away, like, okay, so I've lived on my own for a while. I know what different noises mean. Different noises sometimes signal problems. And I heard something, and so I broke through the door. The door was locked in the bathroom. My dad was beside the toilet shaking, and his mouth was foaming, and the toilet was full of blood. It was leaking over the top. It was blood. So I yelled downstairs for my mom to phone the ambulance, and they came, lo and behold, and just quick enough to save his life. After that, it was found out he had like some kind of prostate cancer, and they said something about the time frame he had. And because of my background working at Sears Health, Food and Fitness, and we had people come in who had cancer, and it's not something that works on everyone. I hope people don't get this and think this is saying that this stuff cures. It doesn't. It doesn't always work. I think the type he had, it helped reduce his cancer to such a small extent that it wasn't a problem anymore. At least he says. You never know sometimes with a parent what they might say, you know, to please their child. So he was doing well. So I'm fast forwarding now to, you know, my dad and I are good type thing. He was supporting me. So I'm not used to people coming to watch my shows that are family. I didn't have anyone. Now at 20, my dad and my mom, I paid for their ticket and I said, you guys have no excuse, you guys are coming. So they came, and you know what, I didn't expect my dad to be that proud. It's something that really today, if anyone feels that their dad is hard on them or their mom or some kind of family member is hating on them or whatever they feel, you never know until in the future, okay? So please, if you're feeling like that, think about that in that way. The people that came up to my dad to shake his hand and thank him and to give compliments about his son, because I'm a very polite and kind-hearted person, I guess. My reputation was so good that my dad, when he was hearing this, because he's meeting these people and seeing this bodybuilding for the first time, he was so overwhelmed. And he said to me, and I don't think he said this to anyone, he said about being very proud of me. And I had never experienced that before from my dad. I never had, you know, you're doing good, or you're proud, I'm proud of you, or there's anything. If anything, I was called dumb all the time. So it was kind of nice to get his respect. And he respected the reputation more than the bodybuilding. But he said when he was watching in the audience, he's like, son, you should start doing this. You know, you should be you should do this professionally. And I was like, what? Because that's like the last thing my dad would ever see. He's a scientist, for crying out loud, right? So he thought I should be doing this professionally, because I guess he could see the age and all those different things, right? So I qualified for this nationals, and for some reason I started getting sick. Okay, so I started getting paranoid, and I didn't think much of my paranoia. I thought it was just like it was real, like people were out to get me or whatever. My dad was like, son, I set up a place for you to go. It was in Toronto. He really wanted me to go. And you know what, I should have, because the guy that I beat, he ended up getting third and was in Flex magazine. I got to find out I had a lot in common with him, and he was not a bad guy. It's probably the most special time in my life was that. Not the bodybuilding so much, but getting to know the person that I had the problem with in my life. At the same time, I never really ever hated my dad. I always loved him. I always did believe that he was misunderstood and he wanted the best for me. There's a genuineness about what he did. Now, there are others out there maybe who are in situations like that where it's not genuine and the person genuinely is trying to hurt you. But with my dad, I don't think it was, because when I did leave home and I came back, it was a totally different story, you know. So he had changed his entire life. He became a much more mellow guy. He was looking out for me. He did a lot of kind things for me on that job. He taught me how to be a person who looks ahead, who learns how to manage things. So in doing that job with him, we got to know each other very well, and he would tell me he was proud, and he taught me how to drive. I didn't know how to drive. So I don't drive now because of my illness, because of the medicine. But I remember coming home from the job one day, and I saw the ambulances outside the house. And I had just talked to my dad. I was negotiating for a higher contract. My dad phoned me. It must have been the last words he said ever to anyone. And it was about an hour before I got home, or half an hour. He said, don't take anything less than 90. So my subsidy was 90 per day. So I was gonna get $90 a day in addition to what I would make in the district. In doing that, I listened to him, so I turned the job down. And it was probably a good idea because I kind of needed him for that job. And so when I got home, The ambulance and the paramedics are there, and my dad died. So it's the last I saw of him. But I can't thank whatever's out there, if there's a God or whatever, I can't thank that enough for having that time with him where I did really get to know who that person is. And I got to understand why he did what he did. So I have a bunch of people in the family. I have two brothers. I have an oldest brother, and I have one that's close to me in age, and I have one that's passed away. He was the second oldest. He died at an age before I was even born, so I never got to meet him. The oldest in our family is my sister, so that's our family. So the oldest brother, he has severe autism. So he hasn't lived with the family ever from when I've been alive. He's always been in a group home. So we would always have to go visit him, or, he had a bunch of people watching him. He was not well. He can't actually talk properly or communicate very well. He can say the odd word. He's very troubled in the sense that he's in a lot of pain. So he's pulled his teeth out of his face, like the front two. He's pulled them out of his face. He's tried to rip his ears off. He's pulled hair out of his head. So he's a very sick person. And these things, to me, when people kind of laugh at someone who may have autism, maybe it's more mild than what my brother has, or laugh at someone with Down syndrome, or laugh at someone with schizophrenia, they make a joke. I know they don't really mean those things, but I kind of look at my brother and I think, like, can you imagine going through that? I'm sure in his mind, in some way, he understands sort of what's going on in life. They cry too. They have feelings. They miss their family too. They want to be loved. And I think really, if people just take the time to be caring and loving, you break down the reason for them to feel paranoid, the reason for someone to feel guilty, the reason for someone to feel like they're ashamed, or someone like my brother who's very ill, the reason for him to feel like an outcast or that he doesn't belong. So I think if people were just embracing these individuals, I know it's a very tough thing to do because it's not a natural thing when somebody's different. But the toughest moment, I think, mentally for me, as far as like crying, was seeing the funeral. My dad had always been very kind to that brother. So my brother, he had to learn what death was. He didn't know what that meant. I saw him with his handlers come in, and it was an open casket, but he's calling out to my dad, "Dad, wake up." He doesn't really talk much, but to hear that got to me in such a way, I think it maybe even triggered the schizophrenia much further. Because I realized, as much as I'm sad and I had my dad the whole time, even though it was kind of broken up, he never had him, and he didn't even know what death was. And he's finding out at the funeral that a person stops living at a certain point. He had no one telling him this. So he was trying to touch him in the casket, and then he started crying, like in such a way that was so, it hurt, because I could feel it. I could feel his pain and his confusion. And it was probably the most terrible thing I've ever felt.
So remembering back, I really didn't know my real father. He had left when I was 3, basically did it for the safety of my mother. And I don't know for years, like my sister and my mother held that back from me, maybe thinking I wouldn't understand, and I didn't. Turns out he had schizophrenia. And, I didn't know about that, right? I remember back when I was like, I want to say 6 or 7, we would have, visitations, and my mother would just take me downtown, and we'd sit down and we'd have A&W, and very soft-spoken individual. Like, looking back, I could probably see the pain. He wished he probably could have been more in his life, but also distant, like, knowing about schizophrenia, it takes a hold of your life, and it tore my mom's soul, because, he was the love of her life. They got married very young, had my sister and myself, and fortunately, things happened where, for the safety of the family, he had to make the decision to leave. And, I know even today, My mother hurts. Sometimes I'll play a song on the radio and she'll start tearing up a bit, and I know it's because perhaps she's remembering to the yesteryears, the way it was. And my sister recounts, he would see him on the bus, but they never really exchanged words or anything. He was at a halfway house for a number of years, actually not that far. I want to say within 5 minutes. He never approached the house. He was obviously there, respectful. One day he literally showed up at the front door and he asked, how I was doing, how was my sister? He asked, how is my mother? I said, my mom's happily remarried. He did seem happy, but he also seemed distant. And at that time, I knew he had mental issues, but I never really asked. So it wasn't until after that he left, I called my sister up. She came over and we had a discussion. She says, well, he had schizophrenia. And I was like, what? I didn't know this. And I knew some details, but I really had to do my research after the fact because I didn't know anything about mental illnesses at all, or and then I figured out, what happened, and my sister told me what happened, and my mother told me what happened. Looking back, I'm glad he did it. It breaks my heart that he had to, but I respect him, love him for making that decision for the safety of the family. It wouldn't be until years later, my mother brought it to my attention that my father and his mother had passed away, and it was in the obituary, and I took the decision to seek out what would be my first cousin. And I said, listen, what happened to my real father? And it turned out 6 or 7 years previous to that, he had committed himself to Selkirk Institution at his own free will. I ended up going out there by myself and visiting him. And, that was quite the experience. He was, obviously older. And then I introduced myself as, it's me, Paul, your son. And then it hit me, like he wasn't violent or anything like that, but he sat there and his mind instantly went to, oh, you're not him. I'm going to call the FBI. I'm going to call the RCMP. And, because obviously it triggered something to him because he still thinks as me as that little boy. He doesn't know, he's stuck in the past, I guess, he doesn't know that. So obviously I stopped pressing and I just simply asked, how are you? Are you happy here? He still paints. When he was younger, he actually did advertising and he was still doing it up until many years ago. And then I took a tour of the facility with his psychologist, the person who looked after him there, and he was still painting and he's quite talented. My sister actually has one of his drawings he did when he was very young. He's incredibly talented. Unfortunately, schizophrenia took the best of him away. And now I know there's, various levels of schizophrenia. One of my best friends, a person I consider like a brother, Chris, when I first met Chris, I didn't know he had schizophrenia. I just saw a big guy working nights at the gym who was approachable, teaching me things. And then I think it was a couple weeks after I met him, he said, oh, by the way, I have schizophrenia. If I can deal with this, I can help you deal. I can teach you the tools you need to become a better self. And he really did. And it wasn't until later I told him, hey, by the way, I know about schizophrenia. My father had it or has it. And I didn't notice anything normal. It wasn't until later, he showed me the medications, and until I really got, he quickly invited me over to his house. He really opened himself up to me. Like I never seen anyone who welcomed me so quickly into his home and his heart. Like he told me everything about his life like he was an open book. There was no hidden secrets. He didn't want to do that until he actually brought it to my attention. That's the weird thing about it is to me, when I think schizophrenia, I think person talking out loud, disassociative, it's like they're separate from reality. And Chris wasn't this. Then I learned there's various levels of how it can affect a person, how some people can deal it better than others. And, unfortunately he was not able to.
This fellow named Paul walks in. He was about 370, I think he said, maybe 75. And I could tell by the way he walked in, he had like anxiety. It was like 2 a.m. But he was a regular. So I talked to, he would walk in like this kind of, big guy. And when he would go on the elliptical, he'd be on there for 90 minutes almost, like 80, 90 minutes, somewhere in there. So this guy could work out really hard, but he didn't know what he was doing. So I knew, like, if I was able to approach him in a way where he's not going to be anxious around me, I could probably help him lose a lot of weight, or at least get more confidence in about like what he's able to do. Because he's, can you imagine, just for people just thinking about it, if you're nearly 400 pounds and you can do cardio for 90 minutes on an elliptical, it's almost like jogging for 90 minutes. It's really the same thing. It's just without the weight on your joints. So you got to be in fairly good strength and health to do that. And that's, to me, that's extremely impressive, especially since he was in about his mid 30s there. So that's not an easy feat to do. That's very hard. And he would come in at night and he would do that and nobody would see it. So it was impressive for me to witness this, right? I want Paul to know that impressed the hell out of me, to see someone try hard when no one's watching, okay? So anyhow, eventually I regained his, I started to gain his confidence, and I started to explain to him, like, you know, what's wrong with me is I have schizophrenia and anxiety. I understand the difficulties of things, et cetera, et cetera. So I started to become friends with this nice guy.
So over the years, you know, I made some attempts to go to the gym. I remember an old boss of mine, we're not really friends anymore anyways, but he tried to get me to go to the wellness center. I tried that. My anxiety was too much though. So hark, you know, back to I was 34, back in, say, let's say fall of 2016, early 2017, I started going to Good Life. And like 2 in the morning, you can imagine the big hoodie, anxiety was so bad, I didn't want to deal with anyone, didn't want to touch them. If anyone came near me, I didn't want to deal with them. And I knew nothing about the gym. I knew nothing, right? When I looked at bodybuilding, I was like, strange, you know, but all I cared about was just getting fit. So I would get on the treadmill and I would just walk and walk and walk and walk. Like, we're talking like sometimes 2 hours, and the incline would get higher. And then that's how I met Chris. I didn't know Chris, like, obviously saw me. Looking back, he told me how it was when I first there, how he could tell the body language. He could see the anxiety, the depression without, like, it was coming off of me, ebbs and flows, basically. I'm sure it was, you could sense it. He approached me slowly. I just saw this big muscly guy, you know, big smile, but I could tell he was very gentle. He knew how to approach me, and he started teaching me different aspects, how to approach things, how not to push myself. That was a key thing. Was I was like from standstill to just go, 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 to the point where I would hurt myself. Like, being the weight I was, my knee, especially my left knee now, it's pretty bad. So you know, I'm trying to lose more weight. At this point now, I'm just a little over 300, I think. Put on quite a bit of muscle. Guys at the gym I mean, obviously it's been 3 years. There were ups and downs, but exercise has really taught me discipline. And you know, everything's connected. Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy mind. Like, the fogginess is gone. Obviously, being physical fit, people look at me differently. They approach me differently. A lot of people just saw this overweight. Obviously, people would say strong, I guess. I mean, just being the size I was always strong, but obviously covered under like 200 pounds of fat, basically. It really put a hindrance on myself. I didn't try things I wanted to do, different jobs I wanted to do, because I was so scared of how people will look at me. Like, I hated bending over, and you know, everything that comes with being overweight. If anyone's ever been my size, how hard it can be, you know, being stuck going to Mr. Big and Tall and wearing 4X shirts, jeans, and you know, it was rough. So now I'm down to about a 2X. I'm learning to get more, you know, comfortable with myself. I mean, everyone knows these shirts. I went decades without. You never see me walk around in just a t-shirt. Now I'm getting to the point where I am fine walking around in a t-shirt. When I'm not, you can see my traps. You can see my shoulders, my back. Like, I can pull down basically all the weights at Good Life on my back when I'm working out my back. You know, see a lot of people looking at me now going, yeah, he's a big guy, but holy crap, he can push a lot of weight. So I get a lot of respect in that aspects. You know, I get, you know, the gym etiquette, you know, fist bumps and all that stuff. Well, obviously can't do that now with COVID. It's a great atmosphere. I've made a lot of friends. Actually, some of my best friends I've now met at the gym because a lot of them have gone through the hardships, and some of them have really opened up to me of, I'm not the only one who's dealt with depression, anxiety all my life. New doors and windows have been open to, everyone. A lot of people have gone through things, but because society has been set up in a way where it's taboo to, have a mental disorder or anything, that's not normal. Everyone's learned that it's okay to be a bit broken a little bit. Everyone's gone through things, and I've become more comfortable with myself. I find I'm more approachable, and confidence. That's the key thing is confidence. I didn't have any before for a couple decades, and now I do.
I think we went real hard for about 3 or 4 months, something like that, 4 months, and he lost. It must have been around 65 pounds in a very short time, and his confidence and his life just really changed. I remember getting him to grab, like in total, I think he was 430, I think he said, 438. So he went from 438, he lost a lot on his own, and then a little bit with my help, he got down to 306. That's a lot of weight. In fact, we didn't have a dumbbell in the gym, like one arm dumbbell that was that heavy. So one day I asked him to grab like, I think it was 70 pounds, because that's what he lost with me. And I remember it being like a big deal to me that he lost the 70 pounds. And I know it was for him too, but I would get him to do all these crazy workouts because the guy was so strong. If you can do 90 minutes of cardio, like what else can you do? You can do a lot of stuff, you just need to learn. So he walked around with the 70-pound dumbbell. I made him walk around the gym a whole bunch of times until he couldn't. And then he put it down. I'm like, how do you feel when you put that weight down? He's like, well, I feel pretty good. Like a way better, than carrying it. So are you tired? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, you used to carry that weight around 4 months ago all the time, and you just put it down. Don't put it back on your body. So that was a teaching point for me to him that you're capable of so much. Your strength is not always witnessed by everyone, but it's still very, very strong, very powerful, even if people don't see it. So you could have that kind of strength and not know it sometimes. So he would do a night job. I remember realizing that he worked the same job for quite some time at night at McDonald's, and the guy is like extremely intelligent. So one thing that I wanted, it was kind of like a mission for me for him to see his intelligence and his strength, and to realize he could do something during the day and have like a regular evening and night. He didn't have to live his life this way the rest of his life. And it eventually did come to that where he got a warehouse job. He was, doing things in the daytime and working out at a regular time in the gym, as he was very shy to do that before. And now he's working at a call center. He goes to the gym every day on his own. He's doing all these great things that he didn't think he would ever. I remember him telling me specific, there's no way I could do that. I said, really? Is there any way most people who are that weight, in my mind, I'm thinking, can they do 90 minutes of cardio? And then because sometimes he was working out 4 hours at the gym, 4 hours, and he's a big guy, and he wasn't lifting even big weights. And I remember looking at him like, you can lift a lot of weight in my own mind. So one time I started getting him to strength training, and he was, I think he would put on the Olympic bar 10 pound on each side. So that's, the bar weighs 45 pounds, and then there's 10 and 10, so that's 55, 65 pounds. And he would never go above that. He would yell if you put more weight on it. So now, what this guy's benching is 225 pounds in the gym. Yeah. And he's one of the strongest guys usually in the gym. So this is what a person has in them a lot of times. Sometimes you're carrying the pain and the anxiety too much. So why not show that strength? And what are you going to lose? What are you going to lose by that?
My first experience with it was in the hospital in BC, and she had admitted Pierre because he was having an episode. He didn't think he was sick, so he was trying to escape the hospital. I was so young, I didn't understand what was happening, so it was really traumatic. We were running through the hospital trying to find him. When I was 12, he was living in a trailer in the driveway. It was It was not, he was not in a good space. He just refused help the whole time. And he was very paranoid. Like, he was big into conspiracy theories, and I was so young that I didn't understand, so it really would like affect me, you know? Like, I would hear him talking about these things and I'd think it was so real because I didn't have the understanding to like differentiate that, like, okay, this is conspiracy theories, that he's clearly gone down this rabbit hole, you know? The first time I heard schizophrenia, I was probably about 2 or 3. Right from that first time in the hospital, that's the only correlation I had so far. I was so young, I didn't have much, and I learned about it because of somebody in my life who had it. I feel like my relationship with him wasn't so negative yet. His first language is French, so I was helping him learn English just by day-to-day life. I think at the beginning it was very positive. I just had fear around the word schizophrenia because I was so young, I didn't understand. His illness really started getting hard, like it really affected my mom. Like, he was really controlling. So yeah, like I saw it like affect her a lot, but we always stayed strong as a family. My mom always drove home like, love is all you need. So having our little family, we were there for each other, and that's definitely what got me through it. All throughout growing up, my mom was very active with us. I was in ballet when I was 5. We were in 4-H. I did like public speaking. I was in kickboxing when I was 12. I was never really big into team sports, but even just having that reason to leave and go see friends at 4-H, friends at swimming, we were in all kinds of stuff. Community is really big. Pierre didn't have much of a community. He had a few friends, but I feel like he was a lot more recluse as the years went on. We went to church from, I was quite young when we started going, like 8 maybe, and we went well into my teens. And so he had some friends at church, but no real other community. For him, that wasn't, I don't think that was the healthiest. There was so much less conversation about it, and how hard that must have been for him to admit that to himself, even that he was sick, you know, when there's so much more conversation now, and we know that like it's something that you can deal with and still live a perfectly fulfilled life.
The medication the doctor gave me, which is not his fault, it's what they're supposed to prescribe, at the time was called olanzapine and citalopram, I think were the two. Very quickly, within 3 to 5 years, I think it was, my weight doubled from bodybuilding to just being overweight from the medication. Basically, they are very strong tranquilizers that help with the mind in a certain way. But the side effect is weight gain. So I gained like nearly 150 pounds. I was 315 pounds at the height of everything. Bumping into someone when you're going shopping, right? And it was very rare that I went out, but sometimes I would see someone I knew. And the odd time I had the strength to go and say hi to them, and they didn't recognize me. My face didn't look like this. You probably won't even know it was me if I was saying hi to you. My body's gone through so many transformations, it's ridiculous. I was 315 pounds and I used to compete at 151 at the first show, 155 at the second, 159. So I'm not a big, heavy person really. Cardio, good diet, exercise is a regular routine of helping yourself. Even if you can't do anything else, if you're a family member, if they don't like going to a gym, walk outside with the person or help them in some way. Get a treadmill, get a bike, let them sit on an exercise bike while they're watching something, just even for 5 minutes. It gives them a goal to get another minute in the next time. These are things that can help them, and it helped me. For some time I've had a heart condition. For some time I've had diabetes. Lots of medicines for my blood sugar. Even with the medicines, my blood sugar was 20. So you have diabetes when you're around 7. So when you're 6 and above, you have like a mild diabetes. 20 is like you should be in the emergency. Mine was always around 20 for quite some time. So the doctor actually at some point sat me down and said, well, Chris, you might have 2 months to live. You could die any day. You could live maybe 2 years. He says, but I really don't think it's going to happen. If you lose a lot of weight, it'll make a big difference. You might be able to continue doing well. So one of the reasons why I didn't exercise is the medication that they used to use, and after that was Risperidol for a while, they're tranquilizers. So it was extremely difficult to work out with a tranquilizer, especially the doses I had to take. So eventually a new medicine came out in 2012 that wasn't yet okay by the FDA, but they put me on it. It was called Abilify. I continued using that with the citalopram. And the thing I noticed, I went on a low dosage. I said to the doctor this time, listen, I want just a small amount, because you give me a big or small amount, it seems to do the same thing. It's just like the bigger amount just knocks me out. If I have to lose weight, I need energy. So I noticed my normal motivation came back. Okay, my belly was so big, I wore a 5XL shirt. Okay, even people who are 500 pounds sometimes don't wear a shirt like that. My stomach was like that. I literally could put a dinner plate and eat like this off of it, and I did. So the very next day, I had this little window open like this. I'm like, screw this, I'm opening the door, I'm walking. So I walked outside like that with that big stomach. I think I lasted 9.5 minutes total. So I walked 5 minutes one way, and I started getting shin splints, so my shins were swelling. I was out of breath because I had a heart condition. And then I walked back home. And I had a big smile on my face because I knew I was gonna do it again tomorrow. And I was pouring sweat for 9.5 minutes. Every day I added another minute or two until about 2 weeks, I started getting a little bit fit. And at the end of the month, it was an hour and a half, nearly 2 hours of walking every day. I didn't miss one day. I changed my diet. I changed my mindset, and I think the medication helped. And these things I did by myself. There wasn't a family member saying, you know what, we don't want you to die, we're gonna walk with you. No one cared enough about me to walk with me. And that is something I still am very, I guess I could say a little upset. So please, if you're somebody who's in a family and you have the ability to help that person, please, if it's just 10 minutes, I know when something is like 2 hours of walking could be a lot. If you can do some of it with that person, it will help them to do it. Maybe in some ways, the fact that I did it myself was good, because then now I didn't have to rely on anyone. But it was like when I got back from the walk, there wasn't somebody saying, hey, you know, you did a good thing by doing this. So there was no support. In fact, when I got back home, people were like, well, do you really need to walk that much? Do you really need this? Do you really need to eat that? Do you really need to not eat this? So it was very difficult. I had to kind of zone those things out and worry about my health. And so that first month I lost 30 pounds just by doing that. I didn't have enough money for a gym, and I was too schizophrenic to go to a gym. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It started going up to 4 hours. So from 1 month, 9.5 minutes, end of the month, nearly 2 hours. Next month, it was about 4 hours each day, not one day off, even in the rain. I walked again and I ate properly, and I got more motivated now, because now I lost another 30 pounds. In the first 3 months, my snoring went away after I lost 60. Okay, so the first 2 months was 60 pounds. Third month, diabetes is gone. It's not there anymore. Within 6 months, I lost all the weight. Some days I was walking 6 hours. So a lot of days were like that near the end. And then I realized I got to go to a gym. This is not very efficient. And I didn't have a lot of money. And I'm going to thank my mom, who did house me the whole time and help quite a bit in some ways, as best she could. She paid for my gym membership at the Wellness Center. Now, this is where things get very interesting, is the Wellness Institute is probably the life-saving thing for me that got me back into actually having a life that's worth living. Other than just walking outside by yourself, losing weight and still living is great, but why not have a life worth living? So I started going to the Wellness Center. Now, I knew I was going to have to go there. I didn't want to go to a regular gym, because for me, that's very intimidating. I was a bodybuilder, I've got schizophrenia. I don't even want someone near me because I'm afraid. Basically, I was so afraid of anyone being near me that I didn't know what they were going to do to me, right? I had this fear of everything. So what I did to soften that fear is, as I'd go on my walk, I'd walk past the Wellness Center. And sometimes I'd walk inside the hospital, which is because it's connected to the Wellness Center, and I would look in the window. And there's a big window there you can look in and just look at the place. And a couple times I walked around. I asked them if I could walk around, and they'll take a tour. I did that, and that was scary for me. So I desensitized myself slowly. So if you have this illness and there's no one helping you, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to exercise. You very much need a hobby that's therapeutic. For me, it was video games. Video games saved my life. Because if you don't have anyone to talk to or do anything, you need something to distract you. So you either read a lot, and if you're reading, you should read all kinds of things, not just one type of thing. You should read about how to get better, how to improve, certain kind of things that just have a story, all kinds of things. If you have a hobby, if you like art, if you're a good painter and you just enjoy doing it, it's therapeutic, you should do that. But the number one thing is cardio. A tiny bit of weightlifting you can do too. Cardio will help heal you the most, your brain and all those different things in your body. Those things are so important, but it doesn't help you get anywhere. Exercising will make you in better shape. It'll make you function better in life. It'll make you more confident because you're doing something that you can see it's working on you. It gives you this thing where, hey, you know what? I lost 20 pounds. Okay, I actually could do something. I have some worth. And as you do that, maybe you see another person who's not well, and you tell them, hey, why don't you walk with me, and then you can lose 20 pounds too. And this is what I started doing, is I started helping people at the gym when I started going there. And I would work out with people. I'd be like, well, the odd time I would strike a conversation with someone. At first, if someone got near me, I would just kind of back away and kind of be scared of them. But after you're there for a few months, you get to, all the faces seem normal to you, right? So when people's faces seem normal to you, you're desensitized. And there was this fellow named David, and he was the most outgoing person. And he took a liking to me, and he was the social butterfly. He talked to everybody. He talked to the receptionist, he talked to the cleaner, and he was just kind-hearted to every human being. And honestly, I would observe him from far away, and I was very taken by, I used to say to myself, I wish I could communicate like that. Like I used to be able to talk like him when I was younger. I was a very positive and good communicator, but because of getting sick and being isolated for so long, and when you're schizophrenic, the thoughts that are in your head aren't the greatest. You see someone who reminds you of what you could be, right? And I looked at David and I'm like, I would like to talk like that guy. I would like to be kind like him. I am kind inside. I want to show people that kindness. And so he started befriending me. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be having a job. I wouldn't be able to go on stage and compete or believe in anything that I could do. When David would go talk to people, I would just kind of tag along. I started to learn how he could talk to people about any subject, even if he didn't agree with it, or if they got offended by him, he would have some way of getting out of the offense. And the thing that I noticed, he was just very honest and kind. He would tell people what he liked about them. And honestly, I think that's within everybody. It's free to be kind. It doesn't cost you a penny. It's free to show your love to people. It's free to give someone a compliment. It doesn't cost you anything. So this is something I noticed from David, and I wanted to be like that. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I started noticing, hey, you know what? I lost all this weight. It's like over 100 pounds now, quite a bit over that. I think the total I lost very quickly just by walking was like 130. And it didn't look the greatest, but. So I went through these, went to my doctor and he said, you qualify for skin removal surgery. Most of it could be paid for, could be covered. Like I brought up to him how I wouldn't show my wife what my body looked like, because it was it was pretty terrible looking, because my skin was like all hanging everywhere. So my nipples were down here, just so people can see, like it was like a flap, and my skin went down like that, and it was empty. It wasn't like fat in it or anything. It was just like this thick skin. So I went to the doctor and he saw the weight. He said I actually had the record in his practice for the most weight loss. And I went to go see a doctor downtown on St. Mary's. I hope I can say his name, but it's Gurbi Singh. I think his first name is Gurbi. Wonderful doctor and very kind-hearted. He helped me. I had to go through a couple surgeries. So one of the surgeries, he had to cut. So like there's this flap here. So my nipple's down at the bottom. He had to cut all the way to my back, like from the middle of my chest to my back. So I have these scars there now. You can't miss them. And he had to cut my nipple off and then sew it onto my body. So my nipples are literally cut off another piece of skin and then put back onto my body on both sides. My waist, which was 60 when I was really heavy, a 60-inch waist, yep. And when I did a bodybuilding show, as I'll talk about later, in 2016, my waist got down to 28. So it was less than half at some point. But I think when I got the surgery, it was like 32 or 33. So they cut all the way around my waist and drilled a hole from my belly button, and it went all the way around my back So I went through that, and I was super happy to go through it. That I went back to the gym too quickly, and I ripped my back open. So can you imagine your back? It ripped open like that. So you can see through the skin. I could put my hand in there like that, which I had to do every day and wash inside my back. Well, there's a hole in it. And I still kept going to the gym because I don't have a car. I would take the bus or walk. And I had this binder on and these tubes coming out of my legs. So if anyone knows if they've had this surgery, they put these tubes in there and they collect the fluid that's welling up at your body. So I had 4 of them. I had them in my hips and in my chest. So these things, they had to, and eventually, you know, after a couple of weeks, they take them out. And I hid them in my sweater and things like that when I went to the gym. And then when they removed those, I had, like I said, I had a hole in my back, and they can't sew that up right away. I don't know if people understand this. So if you've had surgery and they like give you a bunch of stitches, and like I was stitched all the way around my whole waist, it's like a belt. That ripped open, so they can't do that for 2 weeks because your skin is too soft. So I had to go 2 weeks with no, you know, with a hole in my back, for lack of a better word, and every day it's getting bigger, right? And I kept working out, showing up to the gym. Finally, he sewed it up, and I did take some time again. I didn't like missing time because my habits really change fast. So if I have a bad habit, it'll turn into a bad habit quick, right? And it'll be a bad habit for a while because it's hard to get out of it after. So I had to go through that. And then after I saw, like when the swelling and everything, when you go through that surgery, your body's all like swollen, black and blue. Everything, this doesn't look good. It was scary because I looked at my body, I'm like, well, man, I look like Frankenstein. It literally didn't look good because you could just see the whole thing was sewn together. And if you look at my scars, if you ever to see them, you can't miss them. People are always like, what happened to you? You're in another country and something, you know, like it doesn't look like a normal scar, right? Because there are things ripped on my body and things like that, right? So and I didn't take any painkillers because of schizophrenia. You don't want, if you have schizophrenia and you're given painkillers, you might stay on them, you know? So I didn't actually take those unless during the surgery, they might have given me them. But when I came out, I didn't take anything but regular Tylenol. I don't even take Tylenol 3 because I do not want to be addicted to something that puts me back into being someone who just sits in a chair and does nothing. That for me was not a good life. I didn't like that. Now, and I realized I can do more. Once you realize you can do more, try and do it. Don't take another day, just try and do it. And just keep trying, no matter how much, how difficult it is. So as my body healed and was working out, I could see, you know what, I think I could do a competition. Maybe that'll give me a purpose. Because no one in my family seems to say anything. I lost like 150 pounds here. And, you know, I'm just kind of going about it. People in the gym seem to like me. I would make so many friends in the gym. I'd work out with, you know, dozens of people. My average workout was, you know, 6 to 8 hours a day, like pure working out. And this is as someone who's natural. So I actually found being a natural bodybuilder was far easier and more enjoyable than being someone who's on steroids. So 2016, I was a natural bodybuilder. I went into a natural, well, not a natural bodybuilding show, but it was a show where there's no testing. I weighed in at 157 and I won my first show. I probably thought I was better than I was. I mean, my body fat was scanned at the Wellness Center. I can't remember the name of the scanner, but they use it in the NFL on the show The Biggest Loser. They use it in the NBA as well. So anyhow, it gave me a 3% readout, like right on the nose. So I have the record for Manitoba, for the lowest recorded body fat percentage on a scanner. And when it does that, it breaks down how much fat's in each arm. So I think I had 0.1 pounds, 0.01 or 0.1, I can't remember exactly how it worked, in my left and right arm. And it tells you the amount of muscle in each arm, muscle in each leg, muscle in your torso, also the fat in each part of your body, and if it's visceral, so if it's in between your organs. So it's a very, very informative scan. And yeah, so I had the record and I did that naturally, so I'm very proud of that. I didn't even use, when I went to the show, a diuretic from, you know, that you can't buy off the shelf. So I was that level of natural. And I kept continuing being natural for 2 years until 2018, where I almost died in 2017 from continuing to be natural, because when you're around 40 years old, which I was, and you're working out 8 hours a day and working a full-time job, your body can't really handle that. So I got to a point where doing the bodybuilding naturally was causing me bodily harm because of the amount of time I'd spend in the gym. My body couldn't properly recover. My lungs got a very bad infection at the end of the 2017 show, and I really didn't work much for 4 months. Like I couldn't. My lungs were filled with like a jello, like coagulated blood inside my lungs, and it took lots of antibiotics and things like that to fix it. It was literally from overtraining and getting a little bit sick during my contest prep because my diet was so hard. And I would, like, if you're working out that many hours a day and you're not eating much and you get a cold, you're in big trouble. My lungs got infected and I had pneumonia. So it wasn't good. And come December of that year, going into 2018, I talked to my doctor and told him, you know what? He says, like, I don't think you can do this anymore if this is what's going to happen. He says, you shouldn't do it. You could die. Your body can't recover. And like he kind of mentioned that, and I said, well, you know what? I need a purpose in life, and bodybuilding is really the thing giving me some kind of purpose. It allows me to go to the gym and kind of be an example of something, and to show people like they can do something too. It's not that hard. Like it is hard, but they can do it if they apply themselves. So it was giving me like a reason and a purpose to be helpful to other people, and that's kind of how I am. I just like to help people. And so I told him I'm gonna go on steroids. I have a large knowledge of it because when I was younger, what I didn't mention before, when I decided to do steroids when I was younger, I was the kind that would go to the library and look up what they all were. So I learned a lot about them, so it allowed me to use them very well. So I went back on them, and the doctor said he understood actually. And so he would monitor my blood and all that stuff. And since then, I've been using them off and on. I know there's a stigma with these things, and a lot of people claim they don't use them. I happen to know a lot about it, and not saying I'm an expert or anything, or it gives me the ability to tell people what they should do or not do. But I know that when I got the schizophrenia, the overeating was it was a lot more unhealthy than the steroid use. I also know that when I was drinking a little bit too much at certain times of my life, I didn't make good decisions. So some of those decisions cost me a lot. So those are things that didn't benefit me, but the bodybuilding gave me a purpose. It gave me something to achieve. It made me go to the gym and eat good. Not to say that people should go on steroids. I'm not trying to promote them or anything. But if someone wants to be a very good athlete and they end up doing that, and maybe they keep it hidden or whatever their reason is, those things are helping them achieve something at least. Whereas most drugs, recreational or whatever, they don't really help you achieve things. They cause you issues or side effects that are detrimental to your life in general. So this was something that helped me to keep going. I wouldn't have been able to bodybuild anymore if I didn't take those. So that's my reason for those. I'm not trying to tell, especially young people, I would say don't do those because they mess up your natural balance of hormones in your body. You should always wait until you've built enough muscle mass to know if you actually like bodybuilding. Go through the contest prep. Go through the suffering no matter how good you do or don't do. Do the process. Learn if you like bodybuilding or if whatever sport it is. And if you want to be the best at it, well, then you have to, I think a person then at that time should decide what they do. But if it's something you're not going to continue doing, what's the point of jeopardizing that habit, and damaging potentially your hormonal balance and things like that. I'm at an age where my hormones are already, after 30, your hormones start to shut down, 1% a year for men, testosterone on average. So I'm 43, and I started around 40, So the anxiety I felt was as if I was on stage still for about a week. So my heart was beating so fast. The anxiety was still there, but it went away after a week. So the following show that was the same year, in 2016, I think it was end of May or in June or beginning of June or something, I ended up getting dead last. So dreams were kind of crushed. It was a higher level. I got crushed. But this time what I learned is, how can I say it? I felt like I was on stage for about a day only. So when I left the stage, got home, my heart was just going fast for a day. So I realized, that's an improvement from the last one was like a week. So maybe I'm getting better at this. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I can work. So bodybuilding helped me realize I can work. And what really sealed the deal, and sometimes I get emotional, I don't know if I will saying it this time, but I went to Burger King one day as one of the cheap things I did after the contest. And there was a young, this girl will never know, she had an impact on me. It was in the North End, the Burger King there. And there was a girl who was working, just cleaning up and putting the trays away. She had Down syndrome. And she was not having a good time. She was crying very loudly as she's working. And I was so proud of her. And I didn't talk to her or anything. She was doing a job that was causing her the amount of pain of crying, and it was painful, but I was very proud of her. And I said to myself, well, you just did a bodybuilding show. You did all these things. Can you not work, man? I got a pension and everything. And I was questioned myself. I was like, this person is suffering. And yes, I'm suffering too. Maybe I wouldn't cry out loud like that. You feel like that too. I understood what she was feeling. And so it made me really question myself. So I started asking friends of mine if they knew of any gyms or anything like that. Because I thought, you know what, a perfect fit for me is to do a night shift at a gym. So what gyms are open overnight? Well, there's a certain one in my area, and it was Good Life, which I started working out at, and I liked their gym. I started scanning it out. It was comfortable atmosphere. I loved it. I got to see who's there at night, so I knew that it's not that busy. And so a friend of mine helped me get a job at Good Life. And I was completely honest with them about my credentials and things like that, how long I haven't been working. So it was a long time, a long layoff from 2000, right? So it was 2016. So it was at the end of the year I got hired, and so I started working at Good Life. I told them my goal, working overnight. I said I really should be a trainer, but because I have schizophrenia, I'm not comfortable doing that. But I want to help people who at night. Okay, so if you want me to just sit at the desk, that's not what I want to do.
So I started working at the gym, and my manager comes in one day and she's like, I hired this new trainer. He's so awesome. You're gonna get to hear his whole story. He's got this crazy story and he's very open. He'll tell you everything. I was like, okay. And she's like, he has schizophrenia. She's like, it's so cool. He tells you about the whole thing. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited to have another experience with this. I've only ever had this one experience with schizophrenia. So I was really excited. So I met Chris, and of course, I think the first day he told me his entire story. He's like, hi, I'm Chris Mankesing. Yep, these are my pictures. I lost this much weight. I used to compete, blah, blah, blah. Working with Chris was, it was awesome. He was the most generous. So he was always the one coming into work, treating everybody.
But when I had a chance to interview Chris, he's, big, powerful man here, and I was like, okay, this is a big, intimidating guy here. He's the Zangief of Street Fighter, yeah. Looks like he could probably pile drive me into the ground there, yeah. But when I put him through one of the parts of interviewing people, trainees at our club here, is putting them through the workout here. Now, I don't necessarily need everyone to just quote unquote kill it, and show them the best roundhouses and their spinning back kicks. It doesn't, that's not what I need there. I need someone that actually just enjoyed the workout, that loves the exercise there, that does it with good attitude, with purpose and intent there. Yeah. So we always talk about it, E squared in 9 round here, energy and enthusiasm. If they have that there, that helps portray our culture in our club here. So after talking to Chris there, putting him through the workout, which he finished it there, he did awesome. Not all trainers actually finished all the workouts there. Yeah. Even one of my other top trainers, JP or Juan Pablo Alvarez, Vega. He finished off at round 5. He only did half the workout there. But he was one of our top trainers, phenomenal skip roper, immensely strong, very powerful roundhouse kicks there. Yeah. So I still brought him onto the team there. That's not what the initial workout was necessarily meant to be for, is can you finish it or not? It's not that. So I took Chris to the side there and had a chance to speak with him there, yeah. And got to know him through the interview about his background and kind of thought, why 9 round? Why you want to be here? Yeah. And he was very upfront about his mental illness, yeah. And told his story of how he was overweight at home, how he was the youngest bodybuilder to win championship like bodybuilder in Manitoba here, which was a phenomenal story. And he talked about his mental illness of schizophrenia there. And personally, I have other friends and family that have the schizophrenia, and I thought, okay, like they're not bad people, yeah. Maybe there's some instability. How would my patrons, my members, portray that if Chris was on the team here? Chris was very, very open about it there. And because of his awareness of who he was there, even though he never told me that he had martial arts, I could see the martial arts in him, of his self-awareness, yeah. And he was transparent about it. He showed his caring, yeah, for people, yeah. And that's what had resonated for me to hire him onto the team. There's a saying sometimes, like, people don't necessarily care about how much you know, they want to know how much you care. And Chris cared immensely, so much, yeah. Obviously, as an employer, there's certain criteria, like, can they do the job there, physically, mentally there, yeah. If they have the potential to do that there, or if they have alternative ways to make it happen, to deliver the results of the company there, great, yeah. That's when you can start looking past the disability there, yeah. Whether it's physical or mental there. And the hiring process that I've always had with my, UPS store or like video store or 9 round right now is I hire for attitude, yeah. There's a lot of talented people that I've always that have come across me before, and it's like, well, look at what I can do this, I can do that there. But if they didn't have the energy and enthusiasm and the care, yeah, for that wasn't a fit for me and the culture that I want to portray in my club or my teams. I always like this line in the Cobra Kai: there's never ever a bad student, there's only a bad teachers. Yeah. So if someone is not getting it, I have to put it on myself to become better, to make it more manageable for others, yeah, and to learn. So with Chris there, though he was maybe off on a tangent or had a low focus, just a personal trainer, that's what he's used to. Whereas in 9 round, we're used to training multiple people, 9 people in 3 minutes, personal training, yeah, that's the hybrid part here. So it just, you have to be patient, yeah, you have to be patient with your team. You have to set them up for success by giving them goals that they can win at there. Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to say that, trying to be soft on others here, but we still want to be the best that we can at everything that we do with the purpose and intent. Yeah. So this is what your task is here. Yeah. Make it the best you can here. Yeah. And then let's move on and let's level up.
I think I didn't even really view it and I didn't make the connection of the mental illness to how hard Chris was working and how much he was trying to lose weight, and even though if he was putting in 6 hours a day at the gym, there was days where I would come to the gym for my first session and I would see Chris there. I would leave home, go eat, rest for 2-3 hours, I'd come back and Chris would still be there. Sometimes on the same machine, doing cardio. But I never thought of it as like, oh, that guy is crazy, he's training too much, or like, I never put it like that. I just saw it as a hardworking person who's chasing a goal. I knew that I could never do it, maybe to an extent that was crazy, but it was admirable. And I didn't even, the mental illness aspect didn't even come to mind. I think somebody who works through that has a crazy, great work ethic, and pretty much could do whatever they set their mind to. Because if you work that hard on one thing, what's stopping you from working that hard on the other thing? I think if you would pretty much talk to almost anybody who's met Chris, especially through the gym, and Chris has tried to help them in some shape or form. People don't have a lot of negative stuff to say. Like, I'm actually thinking pretty hard right now. There's only one individual comes to mind that I know Chris butted head, well, a couple individuals, but one that I've seen personally that he butted heads with, and it was almost like justified on Chris's side, because that other person was giving unsolicited advice, and Chris kind of wasn't appreciating it, and and that person was, in a way, you could almost say a gym bully. He was, you could kind of say, a bigger guy, maybe was kind of living in the past, and he was always pushing his advice onto younger guys, and I was actually, not I want to say victim, but he tried to push some of his advice on me too, and other than that person who didn't like Chris for that reason that he called him out, there's not too many people that have a lot of negative stuff to say about Chris. All the time you'd hear how nice of a guy Chris is, how much he's willing to go out of his way to help somebody, especially, or even if he barely knows the person. That's one thing that I keep hearing again and again, and I don't know if there's many people that I know that are like that.
What could have helped me, and probably a lot of people, if there was more, it all comes back to the discussion about it, right? Like, we need to be talking about this. So if there was more funding, and because I had no other experiences other than I had someone in my life dealing with this. I wasn't taught anything about this in school, or I had no other experiences with it. If there was more funding and they talked about this stuff more and it was more normalized and we learned from a younger age, I think there would be less fear around it. I think that with discussion, you're gonna learn different parts and things are gonna come together, and that's the only way we're gonna get ahead of this. We're gonna actually start to help people. We need to talk about it. We need to learn as much as we possibly can. We need to not be scared about it.
I don't know if I have any new ideas that I think people need to hear, but I do think the information that is there, that I kind of think everybody knows in the back of their mind without thinking about it, is I think if we're able to be educated on how to make who we are better, if we're able to accomplish the things we want to accomplish, be able to follow our dreams, know who we are, know exactly what problems we're dealing with, because everybody definitely does deal with problems. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be from the nicest, richest family or the poorest, lowliest family. I think everybody deals with their own issues. So I think if we're able to be educated on how to change what we want to change about ourselves, like how to author ourselves in a way where we can grow as individuals, because that's going to be different for everybody. It's hard to kind of just give general information for people to follow because it's not going to work for everybody. So yeah, I think it's important to teach people definitely how to take care of themselves mentally better. So I can't think of anything specific that I would need, but I definitely think it would help if there wasn't a stigma, if there was kind of more focus put on, like I was saying earlier, if there was more focus put on success stories. So like, for example, if people had someone to turn to for somebody that was very successful in dealing with depression, or somebody like my uncle who's very successful in dealing with schizophrenia, which is, I think, a big reason why we're doing this documentary here, is to kind of end a stigma and help people realize that there's a lot of people going through similar issues and that they're not alone, and that there is something to look up to for sure. It's not impossible to feel better.
Now, looking back, one thing I think I really wish was perhaps taught in school, now obviously it's been about 20 years since I've been in school, but what really would help me out was just class about mental health and how it can be approached and how it affects people in their life. I really back then, like I said, the culture has changed where if you opened about your feelings, you were made fun of, you were picked on, belittled. And now it's not so much. Like, people are aware that everyone has issues. People go through things in their life. And I really wish there were options for a person like me in school. Obviously, they have counselors, but it felt really forced upon myself, and I really wasn't open to it. I think if they had maybe some curriculum or something that was there for class, like obviously not optional, but like taught in the class as a regular curriculum, I think it would be helpful if they had just something in there. And I think they are making strides for it. I wish it would be there. Now, obviously, outside of that, the world we are now, I do hope, and obviously in 5 years, we see great strides in mental health awareness and how it affects, especially in this day and age right now. We're dealing with COVID, and people talk about the deaths associated with the virus itself. People aren't talking about the suicide rate of people being stuck inside. I myself am actually on mental health leave right now for a couple days. My anxiety was all-time high. I have been working home since March 15th.
It's free to be kind. It doesn't cost you a penny. It's free to show your love to people. It's free to give someone a compliment. It doesn't cost you anything. How do you use your freedom? Like, I want people who are watching this to think you'll have some freedom. Do you use it to be negative? Do you use it to say, hey, I don't like that guy. I don't like this. I don't like that. Do you use it to complain? Do you use it to help someone? Do you use it to help yourself? Do you use it to bring people up? That's your freedom. Your brother, your sister, your daughter, whoever ended up having schizophrenia, autism. What do you know about it? What if it's someone's, let's say someone's getting bullied. Let's say your son or daughter is bullying someone who has autism. What do you know about it? So I think there needs to be a dialogue amongst people. I really encourage it. Please have a dialogue. And I encourage the governments to promote not just depression, please. Depression is a very important thing, and more people have that, but all aspects. Why not have it in school? Mental health, a subject on mental health. You have psychology already, so I mean, the brain is the thing that makes you make decisions. So if your mind is not working properly at a certain age and it was working properly before, how would you even know you had something wrong with you? It's your actual brain doing the thing incorrectly. So other people who are aware, that would be family, could be friends, could be a teacher, could be an employer, could actually notice this and get help for that person or help them find help. Without any education, that goes untreated a lot of times, or it gets neglected. So what if you can catch it where you could help that person still before it got to a point where it's a PTSD or whatever it ends up being? Maybe they have a bad episode and they feel they can't go back to work or whatever it may be.